know that there's a lot of people who look at things like education and healthcare and these industries that are probably going to be radically shifted in a very short time, and they're just concerned about how do they use it in a way that's beneficial. But
Yeah.
are there industries where you think, wow, this is going to really take over?
I'll pick education as an example since you mentioned it first. We've really gone through the arc there. When ChatGPT first came out, students started using it to write their take-home essays, and school districts were like falling all over themselves to ban it as fast as possible and saying this is the end of education. And there were some people who were saying, well, we adapted to calculators, we'll probably adapt to this, but their voices were sort of like drowned out by this is just the end. And that lasted for a few weeks to like great media fanfare. And then teachers, in many cases, led the charge to get it unbanned because they said, like, this is the greatest learning tool for our students we've ever had. And students were using it as a personalized tutor. And teachers were able to still do what teachers do great, but teachers are horribly overworked, and having the ability to have an AI tutor help and really figure out on any topic what a student needed to learn and explain things and catch mistakes and explain the mistakes turned out to be great. And it was teachers that drove the unbanning of ChatGPT, and I think it's now like, I saw a statistic last week that like 71% of teachers are using ChatGPT in their education process somehow. And
as an aid or a support.
As an aid of some sort, yeah. And students, talk about it, and they're like, this is awesome. This is like how I learn things now. So that was like a full up and down arc. There will be other ones that go the other way. But I think we're still collectively figuring out how we're going to use these new tools.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, there's a big concern, and you've talked about it too, with there are certain kinds of jobs that are just going to disappear. Or
there are, for sure.
That AI will take over, and how that will get regulated and how that will affect our society at large is a really big question for.
Yeah, this happens with every technological revolution, and we always find new jobs and we adapt, but I don't think we've ever had to contend with one that will be as fast as we'll have to contend with this one, and that's going to be challenging.
Yeah, when it went to steam engines or that part of the Industrial Revolution, there were more years to actually.
Yeah, I have no doubt we can do this. I have no doubt we'll be fine on the other side, but the compressed time frame.
And do you think we can do it within the capitalist framework? That's what some people wonder, whether the capitalism itself has its own particular motives, and that whatever kind of comes into that inevitably economic value overrides kind of planetary betterment. And do you feel like that also needs to be questioned? Do we need to look at what is our new monetary system for this new chapter? Or do you feel like we can work with this current one? Or how do you see that?
I think people famously say capitalism is like the worst system except all other systems. And I would say so far. I believe we can find something much better. I think it's been the best system up until now. And I hope in a world with the level of abundance that we're talking about, with powerful AI, we find something much, much better than capitalism. And I kind of think we'll have to, because I think the shift from the relative leverage from labor to capital has already gone way too far, but it goes way further in a world with AI, and also the whole social contract changes. So I think it's like an apt time to figure out, keep the good parts. And there have been a lot of great parts of capitalism that I think unfortunately get totally dismissed. It has been a miracle in many ways, but it's been really bad in a lot of others. And as society continues to evolve, I'm sure we'll make progress.
Yeah, and if you walk around, there's so many places where economic disparity is just disheartening, right? To see the level of sometimes poverty and homelessness, and do you feel that the structure that needs to have you thought about what that structure might look like, and whether there's something that guarantees housing or guarantees financial support for people, or do you have pieces of what that might look like?
There's some people who are like, disparity is the problem. There's some people whose poverty is the problem. People talk about the solutions in a world with AI differently depending on where they come out of it. But one thing I think we all could agree on is that we just shouldn't have poverty in the world, and the definition of what poverty is should lift up every year.
Sure. Yeah.
And for sure, AI and the abundance that comes with that can contribute to that, and hopefully pretty fast. Right. We've actually, again, for all of the doomsaying, we've been on a pretty great trajectory as a society. Like if you look at the graphs of global extreme poverty or global poverty over time, like, good job, you know?
But if we look at it as how much wealth does the top 0.1% own and how much everybody else owns, that's gotten worse. But I agree with you, the poverty's gotten better.
That's gotten worse. And again, I think there's two valid lenses that people look at this from. But I think it's still worth acknowledging already, and again, I think AI is going to do this much better, the progress that we have made on, the progress that we as a society have made in terms of lifting the floor up around the world. A lot further to go, but like, look at that graph. I think it's like we should all collectively be proud of that.
Agreed.
So this is talking about social structures and the most important ones of how we live, equitability, and so forth. There's a different dimension of development, which is human development or inner development. And in some way, I want to ask and envision that AI can actually help raise human consciousness from the competitive or the, greed and fear-based way that we relate, not just as a society, but somehow elevate our consciousness so that there's some way in which we operate, feeling that we're more interconnected, that there's a deeper sense of compassion and care for one another, that those kind of values that we might aspire to, that it's time for humanity in some way to up-level our consciousness and our game, because that's what we are. I mean, that's your truest nature. And to be able to embody that in some way and bring that alive becomes really the next task. Yes, we can develop technology, but we have to develop our connection to a higher consciousness. Consciousness is already here, and it's the game we're in. Actually, we are the play of consciousness, but somehow to embody that in a different way. Do you sense or feel that AI can help with that development, if you will, of humanity's coming into Buddhahood rather than
if you can do that,
selfishhood?
I think you were the first one to say this to me, but we were talking once about what are people going to do in this post-AI world when we have, we all have tremendous resources, we've solved a lot of inequities in the world, we have a lot of time on our hands.
Yeah.
Like, well, there's a lot of people who need a lot of time for spiritual practice, and we're going to have that time.
Right. Instead of going to work, you're going to go to work on yourself. Right?
I hope that happens, and I think it will.
Maybe is there a division of OpenAI that can tackle that, or is that just inherent in what you're trying to do?
That seems like Jack is better qualified to do it than any of us.